Last week, we reported on an historic visit of Iranians here to Israel. We talked about the aftermath of that visit and what's going on inside Iran right now with Ellie Cohanim, Senior Fellow at the Center for Security Policy. Ellie Cohanim, thanks for joining us on Jerusalem Dateline. Great to be with you.
Great to be with you, Chris.
Last week, there was really a historic visit of some Iranians, expats that came here. Tell me what happened during the trip and sort of what was the impact of it.
So, Chris, this was a delegation of Iranian Muslims coming for the first time to Israel after the 1979 Islamic Revolution in Iran. And they came because they wanted to express solidarity with Israel and the Jewish people following the Gaza conflict, which they understand is an Iranian proxy. Hamas is an Iranian proxy. Palestinian Islamic Jihad is an Iranian proxy. These terror groups are attacking Israel on behalf of the Iranian regime, and they felt that this was the moment for them to come to Israel and show their rejection of this hatred that the regime espouses.
A lot of people may think of Iran just in terms of the regime, but it's really not like that, is it? And do these men represent another point of view of Iran?
They wanted the Israeli people to understand that the Iranian people are not the same thing as the Iranian regime. And they told me they wanted to come to Israel and face-to-face tell Israelis that they love Israel. And they really support the Jewish people in the Jewish people's desire for a sovereign state and to have a Jewish state of Israel.
What impact did it have on them?
They couldn't believe that Israelis were warmly embracing them, were welcoming them into their country and into their homes. We went to an IDF army base, and these gentlemen for the first time met an Israeli soldier. A couple of the delegation were people who were born after the 1979 revolution, and so they were raised under the propaganda of the Iranian regime. What they told me was that growing up, they were told that Israeli soldiers were ruthless, soulless, killing machines with the most advanced technology. And so this was the image that they were told about Israeli soldiers. They come on this army base, they meet these 19-year-old Israeli men and women who are being so kind to them, who would cut up fruits and vegetables for this visit, who were talking to them, just buddy, and also telling them a little bit about the Hezbollah threat because we were on the border of Lebanon at the time. And so these Iranians just couldn't believe that despite all that the regime does to really threaten the Jewish state, that the Israeli soldiers and Israeli citizens warmly embraced them and welcomed them into their country.
They also talked about what's called the Cyrus Accords. It was really new to me. Tell us what the Cyrus Accords are.
Well, they wanted to pay tribute to one of the great leaders of ancient Persia, Cyrus the Great, who at the time gave the Jews the permission and the encouragement to rebuild the Second Temple here in Jerusalem. And so the Persian-Jewish relationship is an ancient one that spans thousands of years. And so they want to rekindle that ancient relationship and bring the Jewish people and the Persian, the now Iranian people back together under the banner of a Cyrus Accords peace deal.
So this comes on the heels of the Abraham Accords. If you go back 2 or 3 years, a lot of people wouldn't even have expected this to even happen. Are you feeling the same thing, that it really could happen, something like the Cyrus Accords?
We think it could happen under a free Iran. Certainly this current regime, which again espouses hatred towards America, constantly says death to America, death to Israel. This is not the regime that's going to make peace with the Israeli government. But today, right now, as we're speaking, Chris, the Iranian people are out on the streets. They're demonstrating against the regime. They're shouting, death to Khamenei, who's the supreme leader in Iran. And they're also chanting, not for Gaza, not for Lebanon, but for Iran, which means that they're rejecting the Iranian government spending the country's resources to fund these terror operations against Israel. And so, there is, I think, certainly a hope for a brighter future when the Iranian people are free of this regime and can make peace with all of their neighboring countries.
Well, we hope that freedom does come to the Iranian people. Ellie Cohanim, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
Alpha.